Street United Methodist Church in downtown Kinston, North Carolina. Welcome to our Wesley Bible class. So today we're going to be going through the latter part of chapter 6 of Judges and into chapter 7. We're going to be talking about Gideon, and we'll see the Sunday school version of Gideon, and then we'll see the real version of Gideon so as we go into this. But setting the stage, what's happened is that the people of God have not been the people of God. They've been worshiping other gods, and God's been angry at them, and so he sent some neighbors in to straighten them out, and that was Midian and the Amalekites. These are desert tribes. They live to the east of the Jordan, and we would call them nomadic Arabs today, but they are flocking into these territories of Israel because the Israels have defeated the Canaanites, and the Canaanites were very advanced militarily and had great weapons, and they could keep the Midianites and the Amalekites out of Israel, but Israel whacked them. So now the territory is open, the people are fragmented, and they're going to worship other gods. One of the people who is who's promoting this worship is Gideon's dad, and Gideon's dad is a priest of Baal. Okay, so you might say that Gideon's a preacher's kid, but just the wrong kind. And so God comes to Gideon and sends a prophet to recount how Israel has been delivered by the hand of God in their history. And we don't know who that prophet was. He's not named. Then there's an angel that comes. We don't have the name of the angel either. But the angel is kind of interchangeable with the Lord. Okay? But anyway, the angel comes and tells Gideon that he is a mighty warrior. And Gideon doesn't think of himself as such. He's more of a draft dodger kind of guy. And they're trying to hide things from the Midianites and from the Amalekites. His family is wealthy, though. They have a lot of servants, and they have grapes and they have crops. And Gideon is at the wine press, trying to get the wine in before the Midianites show up for a good drink. And the angel comes and talks to Gideon, hails him as a great warrior, and tells him to kick the Midianites out. And Gideon says, "Say what?" And so he asks for a sign, and the angel gives him a sign. Gideon makes the guy a meal, and he takes the meal, and the angel says, "Put it on a rock," and he puts it on a rock, and then he says, "Wet it down with the broth," and he wets it down with the broth, and then the angel touches the rock with a staff, and everything flames up. So he had meal flambé, and then the chef vanishes in front of his eyes. And I've been to some restaurants where I wish the chef had done that. But anyway, now Gideon is given a commission to tear down the altar of Baal and to destroy it and to sacrifice an ox using the components of the worship area. And so he does that. And everybody gets mad at him, and then they say he should be put to death. And so his daddy comes out and says, "Well, if anybody's going to put him to death, it ought to be Baal, right?" So the people back off, and Gideon is bailed out. So now the next phase, okay, in verse 33. Then all the Midianites and the Amalekites and the people of the east came together, and they crossed over and encamped in the valley of Jezreel. Valley of Jezreel is just the most favorite battlefield in all the Old Testament, and so when we see that Valley of Jezreel, this is a good place for any kind of mobile warfare. If you have camels or chariots or anything, the place you want to race them is in the Valley of Jezreel. So they're down there in Jezreel, but the Spirit of the Lord took possession of Gideon, and he sounded the trumpet, and the Abiezrites were called out to follow him. He sent messengers throughout all Manasseh, and they too were called out to follow him. He also sent messengers to Asher, Zebulun, and Naphtali, and they went up to meet him. Okay, it's important that you know not only the tribes that he got, but that the tribe he didn't get. Okay, that comes later. So anyway, he's calling all these tribes because you're going to need a lot of folks to get the Midianites out. Okay. Then Gideon said to God, in order to see whether you will deliver Israel by my hand as you have said, I am going to lay this. Okay, so he's called all these people out to fight, and now he's asking God for proof that they can do it. What do you do if God says, well, maybe I won't send you a sign? You're going to send all of them home. By the way, why are the tribes coming to his support? Why would the tribes come to his support? Are they doing this for the glory of God?
No.
No. What are they doing it for?
Because Gideon's rich and he called him.
Okay, so Gideon's he's a rich boy, but he hasn't got enough to pay all these people, so what's...
Their own protection?
Huh? No, not their own protection. A lot of these people are out of range of the Midianites and Amalekites. Why would they come in? Why do most wars start?
Over land?
Yes, although this is not over land because the land's been allotted.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are they looking for?
Glory from their fellow man.
Well, there is that.
I'm out of ideas.
Looking for booty.
They're looking for booty.
Okay.
That's it. They're coming for the money.
Is that right?
Okay? This is a way that they can steal from the Midianites and the Amalekites who have been stealing from them. Okay? So understand that these tribes that are coming in have not necessarily been marauded by the Midianites and the Amalekites. Okay? So the stuff that the Midianites and the Amalekites have is stuff that they stole from Gideon's tribe. Okay? So they're all looking for a payoff.
They're coming to get Gideon's stuff back from him so they can give it back to the rightful owner.
Okay, back up a little bit. Okay? There's a story in Genesis about Abraham. Okay? And we just had a sermon on tithing and everything. Okay? Where the tithe was set by Abraham because he gave 10% of something to the priest Melchizedek, okay, who was a monotheist. Where did Abraham get the stuff? Well, what happened was that there was Midianite kind of people that raided, and while Abraham was off somewhere, they captured some of his family. They raided his camp and took all his stuff, and took a lot of people with them as slaves. Okay, so Abraham gets a bunch of people together and he goes off and he whacks them. And when he whacks them, he gets the loot. And so when he gets the loot and he's coming back, he meets Melchizedek and he gives 10% to Melchizedek. A lot of it wasn't his money to start with. It's what we call the increase. Okay. So these people are all coming together because they think that Gideon's got a plan and they're going to loot the Midianites and the Amalekites. And that's what's bringing these people in. It's not a matter of national pride, nor is it a matter of doing this for the Lord. They are doing it for the money. All right. Then Gideon said to God, and this is the Sunday school Gideon, okay? Then Gideon said to God, in order to see whether you will deliver Israel by my hand, as you have said, there's a lot of my hand stuff done. I am going to lay a fleece of wool on the threshing floor. If there is dew on the fleece alone, and it is dry all around on the ground, then I shall know that you will deliver Israel by my hand, as you have said. So he should be satisfied by that, right? Okay. And it was so. When he rose early next morning and squeezed the fleece, he wrung out enough dew from the fleece to fill a bowl with water. Then Gideon said to God, Do not let your anger burn against me, but let me speak one more time. Let me please make a trial with the fleece just once more. It sounds a lot like Moses. Moses was always doing that. He had a conversation with God, and then he said, well, let me just allow me to speak one more time, Okay, so Gideon is doing the Mosaic thing. Do not let your anger burn against me. Let me speak one more time. Let me please make trial with the fleece just once more. Let it be dry only on the fleece, and on the ground let there be dew. And God did so that night. It was dry on the fleece only, and on the ground there was dew. All right. Now, a wise person once said about relationships, how it starts is how it goes. Okay? Gideon starts by fleecing God.
Well, Gideon does what we do as humans.
Yes. Now, here's the thing. Here's the thing. Is Gideon looking for faith, or is he looking for proof?
Or is he looking to trick up God?
Yeah.
He's looking for proof.
He's looking for proof. And a lot of people, when, they worship the Lord and they love the Lord and all of that, but a lot of people want to have a lot more proof than they want to have faith.
I mean, we do that today.
We do that today. Yes, indeed. I've done it.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't have sheepskin, but
Right, but you
Yeah.
asked for proof.
I did. I did, and I got it. In fact,
The moral of that story is don't ask for proof.
right. That's right. I got proof through some trials and tribulations and periodic alleviations, and I knew that God was trying to send me a message, and God was preparing me to hear it. Okay, because I wasn't otherwise. So, so anyway, God here Gideon is looking for proof. Okay. Now we're moving to chapter 7. Again, this is part of the Sunday school version, okay? Then Jerubbaal, and you never hear of him referred to as Jerubbaal in Sunday school. You always hear of him as Gideon, right? We don't want to get Baal's name involved, okay? But he was known as the one who put Baal to the test. His name is Jerubbaal as a result of that. But we'll just call him Gideon.
Was that a bad thing for him to be called Jerubbaal?
It was like a slap in the face to Baal.
Right, but to Gideon, was it bad?
No,
Okay.
no, because he was being acclaimed for being more powerful than Baal.
Right.
Okay? So Baal couldn't touch him. And that's what it says. Then Jerubbaal, that is Gideon, and all the troops who were with him rose early and encamped beside the spring of Harod, and the camp of Midian was north of them, below the hill, of Morah in the valley. So Gideon's up in the hills. The people are all avoiding the Midianites by going to the hills and living in caves. So he's on the high ground, which is a good thing to be if military. The Lord said to Gideon, the troops that are with you are too many for me to give to the Midianites into their hands. Israel would only take the credit away from me, saying, my own hand has delivered me. Which Gideon was trying to get some credit before that, okay? Now therefore proclaim this in the hearing of the troops, whoever is fearful and trembling, let him return home. Thus Gideon sifted them out. 22,000 returned, and 10,000 remained. Okay, now the word for thousand in Hebrew could mean a tribal unit. It would be incredibly rare for anybody to have 30,000 troops out there. That's just beyond belief for the population that was there, okay? So anyway, what you're really looking at is tribal units. Then the Lord said to Gideon, the troops are still too many. Take them down to the water, and I will sift them out for you there. When I say, this one shall go with you, he shall go with you. When I say, this one shall not go with you, he shall not go. So he brought the troops down to the water, and the Lord said to Gideon, all those who lap the water with their tongues as a dog laps, you shall put to one side. All those who kneel down to drink, putting their hand to their mouth, you shall put to the other side. The number of those who lapped was 300, but the rest of the troops knelt down to drink water. Now, if I'm looking, I'm going to be watching the guys who knelt down and brought the water up with their hands, because they're going to be more situationally aware of what's going on around them. They would seem to me the ones who are most ready to do the fighting, because they're not going to get, they're not going to be staring down into the water. They're looking around while they're drinking. So those are the guys I would pick. Okay. Then the Lord said to Gideon, with the 300 who lapped, I will deliver you and give the Midianites into your hand. Let the others go to their homes. So it's exactly the reverse. The ones who got down and lapped water like a dog were the ones who were picked. So
Okay.
when somebody says release the dogs of war,
I don't know, because my version said 300 men brought up the water to their mouths with their hands, and they lapped it up the way that dogs do. So that, to me, means that they're up and the water's coming up to their face.
yeah,
So,
except no.
Except no what?
Well, this one, okay, this is the new RSV.
So we changed.
So yes,
This person wrote it this way and that person wrote it that way. Okay, gotcha.
yeah, because whoever wrote it that way was thinking like I'm thinking. Okay, so you know he's wrong. Okay. That same night the Lord said to him, get up, attack the camp, for I have given it into your hand. But if you fear to attack, go down to the camp with your servant Purah, and you shall hear what they say, and afterward your hand shall be strengthened to attack the camp. Then he went down with his servant Purah to the outpost of the armed men who were in the camp. So he's spying out. Okay. The Midianites and the Amalekites and all the people of the east lay along the valley as thick as locusts, and their camels were without number, countless as the sand of the seashore. Boy, that thing must have smelled bad. Then Gideon arrived. There was a man telling a dream to his comrade, and he said, I had a dream, and in it a cake of barley bread tumbled into the camp of Midian and came to the tent and struck it so that it fell. Boy, that's a big cake of barley. It turned upside down and the tent collapsed. And his comrade said, this is no other than the sword of Gideon, son of Joash. So Gideon has a sword of barley cake. Okay. A man of Israel, into his hand God has given Midian and all the army. Well, there it goes. That's psychological warfare. God's playing with them, with their brains. Okay. If you can play with their brains ahead of the battle, if you read Sun Tzu, that's what you want to do. You want to fight a war where you don't have to fight. So if you can discombobulate your enemy before you get into the battle, you've got a better chance of winning, even if you're outnumbered. Okay. When Gideon heard the telling of the dream and its interpretation, he worshipped, finally found out, okay, and he returned to the camp of Israel and said, get up for the Lord. This is the first time that Gideon, by the way, indicates that he's worshiping. Okay, now there was the sacrifice at the altar of Baal, but this is the first time you really see Gideon worshiping. So what it's saying is that this is the thing that finally convinced Gideon. It wasn't the prophet, it wasn't the angel, it wasn't even the fleece. Okay? It was when he went down to the camp of Gideon and he heard these guys were ready to panic. That's when he believed. So he was a man of little faith. Get up, for the Lord has given the army of Midian into your hand. He divided the 300 men into 3 companies and put trumpets into the hands of all of them and empty jars with torches inside the jars. He said to them, look at me and do the same. When I come to the outskirts of the camp, do as I do. When I blow the trumpet, I and all who are with me, then you shall also blow the trumpet all around the camp, the whole camp, and shout for the Lord and for Gideon. Now, when Joshua walked around Jericho and told the people to blow their trumpets and shout, it was for the Lord. It wasn't for the Lord and Joshua. Okay? So Gideon's still kind of horning in on this whole victory thing. Okay, so Gideon and the 100 who were with him came to the outskirts of the camp at the beginning of the middle watch, when they had just set the watch, and they blew the trumpets and smashed the jars that were in their hands. So the 3 companies blew the trumpets and broke the jars, holding in their left hands the torches, and in their right hands the trumpet to blow, and they cried, "A sword for the Lord and for Gideon." All right. Every man stood in his place all around the camp, and all the men in the camp ran. They cried out and fled. When they blew the 300 trumpets, the Lord set every man's sword against his fellow and against all the army. Now understand, this is the dead of night. Okay? So they don't really know who they're fighting. So the Midianites and the Amalekites are doing what we call friendly fire, but it's not really that friendly. Okay? That's one of Murphy's law of combat, is friendly fire isn't. And the army fled as far as Beth Shittah towards Zerara, as far as the border of Abel Meholah by Tabath. I don't know where these people are. And the men of Israel were called out from Naphtali and from Asher and from all Manasseh, and they pursued the Midianites. Okay, now what's going on? There is, at this point, a rout. Here's Gideon's problem. He's got 100 guys up on the hills that are simulating a huge army. But they don't go down into the camp of the Midianites or the Amalekites. And the reason why they don't go down is because there's only 100 of them. Okay? So there's not enough of them to really sack the camp. So now, all those people that Gideon sent away, he's calling back, because it's during the rout that you really do the killing. And it's going to take more than 100 guys to do it. So he calls back these other tribes, and they come back because the Midianite camp is in panic, and they're easy to take, and they can come in and grab the loot.
So did God tell him to call the men back?
No. He did that on his own.
So he's not calling them.
Okay. So these other tribes show up. Then Gideon sent messengers through all the country of Ephraim, saying, "Come down against the Midianites and seize the waters against them as far as Beth Parah and the Jordan." So all the men of Ephraim were called out, and they seized the waters as far as Beth Parah and the Jordan. They captured the 2 captains of Midian, Oreb and Zeb. They killed Oreb at the rock of Oreb, and Zeb they killed at the winepress of Zeb. As they pursued the Midianites, they brought the heads of Oreb and Zeb to Gideon beyond the Jordan. That part didn't get into your Sunday school lesson. Okay? Now what's going on? Ephraim is called out, but they're called out late to the game. They capture 2 generals, okay, but they don't get much spoil. Okay. Is that mine? That must be the end of it. Okay. So anyway, this is a bad deal. As we get into a further lesson, you're going to find that Ephraim is really unhappy because yes, they captured these generals, and but they didn't get any loot, and so they're mad at Gideon and they're ready to kill him. And why didn't you call us when you called everybody else? We could have been in on it. And you know, Gideon does a diplomatic thing, which is a rare thing for Gideon, and he tries to quell their disappointment by saying, "Oh, but look at the glory you have in capturing these generals. I could never have captured these generals. You captured the generals. Isn't that better than loot?" And they thought, "No, you know, okay." There is something that is part of the culture that we've been talking about. And this aspect of culture is something that persists in societies to this day. If you have a culture that is a warrior culture, okay? Then the male identity in that culture, with the affirmation of the women, is for how great a warrior you are, how much glory you have in battle, and how do you prove how good you are in battle. So in a warrior culture, you're going to take scalps, you're going to do things to demonstrate your prowess over someone else.
Heads.
Huh?
Heads.
Yeah, heads. Okay, heads will roll. Now, in a warrior culture, it's basically, when you go into battle, it's every man for himself. Because you're trying to prove what a great warrior you are. Now, if you read Caesar in his conquest of Gaul, you'll find that there were times when Caesar had a battle plan for his armies to go forward together, okay? But some guys in these units would run out in front of everybody else to try and take the glory. And the thing is, if you're trying to surprise your enemy, you really don't want somebody running out front to do that, okay? But because they were interested in glory, they ran out to do that. And Caesar said, well, you're a brave guy, but we're going to execute you for that. So, okay? But a warrior kind of culture is every man for himself. And I know that every once in a while you get into, recruiting for the American Army and for the Marines, they try to say that you're a warrior. Well, they shouldn't say that. They should say you're a soldier.
So isn't that sort of like a gang culture? Not that I know much about it, but, they are told to go out and do certain things.
Yes,
And they do it.
and they do
And they
it.
do it not for the glory of a woman, but for the glory of those
Sometimes they do
people.
it for the glory of a woman.
And it could be.
Yeah.
But it's kind of that way, is what my brain went to.
Okay, the individual desire for combat is warrior. Okay? A soldier will go into combat. Okay? But a soldier's primary goal is for peace or defense, a willingness to work within the system that we have. Okay? So there are times when a soldier gets into individual combat. Okay? But the way we fight, generally, is that no soldier should have to go out there by themselves. And I was in intelligence work, and as far as I'm concerned, when somebody had to get into that kind of close combat, and individual fighting and intense fighting, somebody on my side of the line wasn't doing their job. Because you're never supposed to fight fair. Okay? So, this is a warrior culture. Native American culture was a warrior culture. Okay? The reason why the Romans were so successful is that they really didn't promote a warrior culture. They promoted an army. So the people that were coming up against them didn't come up in a unified line. They didn't come up looking necessarily left and right, taking care of the person to their left and right. The Roman order of things was that you always look for the person to your left and right. And when somebody's messing with the guy next to you, you stab him, okay? This is all for the loot, this is all for the glory, and Gideon exemplifies that because he's looking for all the credit. And I think it's important for us, we have people in the church who are the saints. And there are times when they've had to get out there and do things on an individual basis that are really spectacular. But the Christian movement is the movement of a church where we work together, where we pool our resources, okay? And if we see somebody who's in jeopardy, we should immediately go to their support to help them in the church, okay? So I can go out here on the street and I can give somebody $5 for a meal at McDonald's. But if the church can put together a food drive, you know, we can help a community. And that's kind of the orientation that I've tried to promote within not only our denomination, but amongst denominations. One of my objectives in disaster work was to get denominations to work together. Okay, so because denominations are like warriors, they like to get all the credit for what they're doing, and if what they're doing overlaps with what somebody else is doing, they're in competition with each other, and not for the glory of God. Okay, a warrior in some respects is in competition with the rest of the army. And we shouldn't be like that. Okay? Except when the church is wrong. Then sometimes you need some warriors to fight inside the church. Okay? But what I'm saying is that there's a mentality here. And the mentality of Israel is not the mentality of Israel. It's a mentality of tribes and of warriors. They are a warrior culture. And they've been developing this warrior culture because they've been annihilating people and looting people, and they see the profitability of going to war. That's been their heritage, that war is a profitable endeavor.
But when did that start? Because God let other people attack his people.
Yes, that it happened when they got strong enough to steal.
That's right from the beginning.
Okay? It happened when they got strong enough to steal. Well, anyway, here we are, getting ready to do chapter 8, which is not one they teach in Sunday school. So, glad to have you with us, and by all means send in some comments and questions and snide remarks as the Lord wills. But glad to have you. See you next week.